Welcome to the Inner Slot podcast. Another mock draft this week. This time, Henry's been in charge of mocking away. So as usual, it's me, Josh, joined by Connor, Henry, and Chris. Over to you, Henry. Take us through your draft.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so this is my first mock on the pod. So looking forward to bringing it to you. I hope that you've come here not just for the title, which I'm sure we'll get to at pick number 3. But the top 5 of my draft, the first 2, there's no surprises here. I've got number 1, the Jags taking Trevor Lawrence. You've got that everywhere you look. And number 2, I've got the Jets taking Zach Wilson. So no surprises there. Pick number 3, though, it's where it starts to get a little bit interesting, and it's not a pick I've seen before, which is Mac Jones going at number 3 to the Dolphins. Number 4, I've got the first time in NFL history 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 4 picks, and it's actually the Panthers trading up to pick Trey Lance. And then at number 5, the Bengals get the player that everyone thinks that they want, Penei Sewell at number 5. So I'm just going to do it in groups of 5, ask the guys what they think about it, and then have a chat about it that way. So that's the first 5. I'd say a couple of expected picks, maybe a couple of not. What do you think about those 5?
Yeah, obviously I'll jump in straight away. You highlighted it, Henry. 4 quarterbacks. Interesting that Justin Fields wasn't one of them. No doubt we'll see him go shortly, but I think there is a lot of realism there. That's the way it feels right now. Out of the 5 quarterbacks, everyone's a bit lower on Justin Fields. Mac Jones, interesting storyline, going to Miami. Maybe 2 is still there. They compete once again for the starting quarterback spot. My biggest question, and actually I want to pose one back to you, Henry, is let's put yourself in the position of the Bengals now. Not something they're necessarily expecting to be there, but they've got the choice. Jamar Chase is still an option. You could pair him up with Joe Burrow and worry about offensive line later on, or do you maybe consider getting smart with the draft pick, or do you just pull the trigger, just know Penei Sewell's the guy to go for?
Yeah, great question. I think that's one that's very realistic for them to have on draft over these quarterbacks. I think it depends on free agency. I think we've touched on it before. If they can fill that O-line need in free agency, or by all means, go for it, reunite that LSU pair. If they don't, then I think they will pick Sewell. I think he is clearly the best prospect at his position. I think there's some, I would say Devonta Smith is probably closer to Jamar Chase than another tackle is to Sewell. That might sell it. And then, as we talked about before, we've got that bias. Their star quarterback's just coming off an injury. They're going to want to protect him. I think that's maybe where they'll go. Chris, what stands out to you about that first 5? Anything you wanted to bring up?
No, we talked about the quarterbacks on the most recent pod, and I think Trevor Lawrence, yeah, Zach Wilson, yeah. I personally quite like Mac Jones, and I don't like Tua. We discussed it in the season. Obviously, how Fitzmagic had to come in and sort of rescue the day. So that would be really interesting if Mac Jones did go at number 3. But I don't think Miami need to go quarterback here. I think they are more likely to take Jamar Chase. But having seen where he goes, that could be a really good fit where you've got him there. I really do like that one, but I won't give any surprises just yet. Panthers coming up to get Trey Lance. I think that could be legit. Obviously, I compared him a bit to Cam Newton, so that could quite work out. And I think, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. If the Bengals can pick up an offensive lineman in free agency, then they don't need to go Sewell. But I think they probably will go Sewell at 5.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And as you said, and you both mentioned there, the Mac Jones storyline going to the Dolphins was just too tasty to pass up. I wanted to mock it to see what people thought. It's not what I would do. I'll put it that way. We did our quarterback rankings earlier this week, so I'm sure we'll link that in the description below. Go check that out. But that wouldn't be my pick at number 3. Connor, what do you reckon? Mac Jones versus Tua competition again? What do you think the outcome of that would be?
I mean, Tua, I think we need to see something from, and how do you spark it for him? How do you just make him the player that he was supposed to be? I think really interesting, and I completely agree on Saul now as well. I know I said it a couple of pods back, but I was really hoping he would fall down the draft board. It's exactly what the Cowboys need. Obviously, everyone's saying that we need our defense to get a bit of a shuffle as well, but he would have been great. And yeah, I was hoping he would drop, but it's looking less and less likely now, and it's looking like the Bengals are going to secure that. So yeah, no, I think it's a great top 5, and yeah, I actually didn't know that 4 quarterbacks hadn't been like that's news to me. 4 quarterbacks hadn't been picked in the top 5 before, so I mean it's a strong class, and yeah, if there's any time to do it, it's now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully you'll be happy with my Cowboys pick. We'll get onto that in a second. I just got one last question for you guys. If everything you know about Tua, so take into account his rookie campaign, where does he rank in this class to you? If he was magically reinserted into this class, you still know everything about him from his rookie campaign. What ranking are you giving him? Go on, just give me a number. Chris, I'll come to you first. What do you reckon?
4, I think.
4. Yeah. Josh?
Quite possibly 6.
Okay.
Ooh.
Savage. Connor?
What, 6? 6 out of, oh, yeah, that's tough. Probably, I think he'd break into the top 5. Maybe bottom 5. But I also did see something, I was going to say it on the pod during the week as well, but I saw a little debate happening on Facebook, say like an unpopular opinion, but Tua had just as equally a good season as, his name's absolutely gone out my head now.
Jalen Hurts?
No, I'm having a bad one there. I'm going to kick myself. The Bengals.
Right.
It's going to be Trevor Lawrence, isn't it?
Oh,
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Literally mind blank there. That is awful. Like, I was like, right, I'm making this point. It's about Joe Burrow. Forgot his name. But yeah, so unpopular opinion, and then there's some stats that prove a little bit about Joe Burrow, like being quite poor, like the worst quarterback to throw deep in the league last season, which is really interesting. But yeah, no, I think just back to the point, he probably would just come into the top 5 for me.
Interesting. So I think in many ways we do answer a question for the Dolphins there, because for me probably 5, maybe 6, like Josh said. So yeah, I think at 3 you're guaranteed to have a quarterback better than him if the Dolphins view him the same as us. Anyway, let's move on to the next 5. So number 6, I've got Justin Fields going, but it is not to the Falcons. It's a trade up from the Broncos to go and get a quarterback with Fields still on the board. Number 7 is Jamar Chase going to the new Dan Campbell's Lions. Number 8, I've got my favorite, Kyle Pitts, going to the Falcons after they traded down earlier. Pick 9, I've got Caleb Farley going to the Eagles after they traded down with the Broncos. And at pick number 10, I've got Rashawn Slater going to Connor's Cowboys. So what about those 5?
Yeah, I'll hop in first again, Henry. Obviously, it's an interesting trade. Obviously, there's one quarterback that people need to go and grab, and that's Justin Fields. The Eagles trade down, but by trading down, they seem to miss the 2 picks you probably would have pegged them for. Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts go. So probably something that they're considering at the moment, I would imagine. I think that's a massive loss for the Eagles if something like that did happen. I think if they let those 2 get away from them, that's terrible drafting for an organization which is probably one of the worst right now in the league with what's been going on this offseason. Obviously, because there are 5 quarterbacks going in the top 6, all the talent gets shunted down the draft. So, we see Rashawn Slater go 10 to the Cowboys. I think that's a really nice fall for them, and they've got some great value in that spot. And also, Patrick Surtain doesn't even crack the top 10, which is, where he's typically going. Caleb Farley, I agree, probably the better of the 2 cornerbacks. But yeah, just my general thoughts on it.
That's great. Thanks, Josh. Connor, happy with that pick to the Cowboys? Someone else you'd rather have? What do you think?
I mean, I think for me, if it's not the top, if it's not Saul, I think for me it would be defense for sure.
Okay.
I think that's where that was our biggest struggle last season. Like, Dak still had time. It wasn't the greatest defensive line for our running backs, but he still had time to be able to throw the ball, be the passing leader while he was fit. We still created those chances. The offense wasn't the problem, and I said it the whole season long. It was our defense that was letting us down every single time. You can't carry the weight of the world on the offense. Like, defense needs to step up and prevent the score on the other side of the ball. So if that's where the situation is, I would prefer us go for a cornerback.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. And Chris, I'll come to you. Josh touched on it there. Seems like a disaster for the Eagles, this trade. Sorry, Eagles fans, but they trade down. They're going to stick with Jalen Hurts, and their Broncos. In this trade, they were giving them a lot. I'm thinking possibly a first-round pick next year for this trade. But they trade down, and like Josh said, they miss out on Chase. They miss out on Pitts. They don't get a quarterback. What are your thoughts on this trade for the Eagles?
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as Josh. I can't see the Eagles trading past those two potential roster-changing skill players. I don't think they need a QB, so it makes sense to potentially maybe try and get some value out of it. But you look at Jamar Chase; he's the number one wide receiver. Kyle Pitts, your number one pass catcher, Henry, in this draft. So I don't think they can pass on either of these players.
Yeah. Okay. Eagles fans, let us know in the comments how much do you hate that trade. We'll move on to the next five. Pick number 11, I've got Jalen Waddle going to the Giants. 12, Patrick Surtain does come off the board to the 49ers. 13, Devonta Smith to the Chargers. 14, Christian Barmore to the Vikings. And 15, Micah Parsons to the Patriots. So, Chris, shall I come straight back to you for this five? Anything stick out to you there?
I see you've got Jalen Waddle at 11, like Josh did. I can see that. Obviously, people can listen back to the first draft that we looked at. A really nice fit and potential some fantastic yards after catch to be gained there. It's interesting to see Devonta Smith down at 13. I think I mentioned on one of our earlier pods that I would like to see San Diego take another. It's San Diego, isn't it? I thought it just didn't change their name. I had a Connor moment.
Well, they are the LA Chargers now.
That's what I was going to say. They are.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Connor, me and you. Showing
it's
my
Saturday
age.
night. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I would like to take another wide receiver, but it's interesting to see him, Devonta Smith at 13. He just doesn't look right there with all the Heisman Trophy in the season that he had. I think he deserves to go higher. And New England, I think they need a quarterback in this draft. I know they've just renewed Cam Newton, but yeah.
I think we lost Chris's audio for a second there, but yeah, his view that the Patriots need to get a quarterback somehow in this draft. Josh, what do you reckon about those five picks?
Yeah, I actually really like them. I think this probably looks exactly like we think it would in the end, is what I imagine. I agree with Chris. Devonta Smith to the Chargers, that's a perfect spot for them. I think that's as far as he could possibly fall, provided Jalen Waddle isn't also falling, which I don't think is possible. 49ers getting Patrick Surtain is incredible value. I think they would be really happy to take that pick. I didn't like the Vikings going interior defensive line here. I just feel it's such a deep class, and it always is. There's such a deep level of talent. To pass up someone like Micah Parsons in the process was a bit of a disappointment for me. I agree with Chris. Yeah, the Patriots do have to address quarterback, but we've already seen five go. We've already seen the top five go. I don't think you could really spend a first round pick on any of the other guys. I love Kellen Mond, but probably second or third round at best. I think that's the way they should go. And who knows what happens in free agency. But yeah, I think overall quite solid. I don't like the Vikings spot, but I think they're in a terrible spot in the draft anyway.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think both of you make a good point there. And I think in this mock in my head, sort of the Pats tried to come up for this pick, and probably the two teams Falcons and Eagles, it was too far for them to fall down. That was probably along my thinking in this sort of draft. The Barmore pick's interesting. I think in my head I was kind of being Mike Zimmer there. I feel like that's one of those ones like the Mac Jones to the Dolphins, one where I'm thinking this might happen, but not what I would do. Connor, anything to add on those 5?
No, nothing from me. I think I have to be fair, like, not necessarily on your picks, but I've seen a lot of people potentially having New England trading up as well, which could be, again, really interesting to see if they are after that QB position as well, to keep Cam around for a newbie coming in. So that could be interesting to see as and when it comes to it for them. But otherwise completely agree with everyone else's thoughts on your picks.
Yeah. I think similar to what you guys said, I think the Giants, Niners, and Chargers are delighted here, and maybe the Vikings and Pats are probably not. I agree with that.
Yeah, Henry, I actually wanted to jump in and pose a question to you. We raised it about the Patriots, and I disagree with people who think they could trade up in the first round. I don't think historically as an organization they do that. I think it's too expensive now, and those teams wouldn't want to. Which quarterback later on in the draft do you think they're looking at?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I know you've got a special affinity for Kellen Mond, having done our film analysis. I really like Jamie Newman. I think probably 3rd or 4th round might be a really interesting spot for Newman. He's not a typical what you would think of a Pats quarterback in the mold of a Hoyer, Garoppolo, Brady. He has a lot more tools than that. Big arm, mobile. But I think he could be one to watch out for. I'm interested to see. I think he's like Mond, has the tools to be an NFL starter.
Yeah, and for me, that's kind of what I was hoping you were going to say, because I think Jamie Newman could be a new Cam Newton style player. Didn't play last year because of COVID. So, yeah, that would be a really interesting one, I think.
Yeah, well, I think they're probably going to add someone, so it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. I'll jump into the next 5. So at 16, I've got JC Horn going to the Cards. I've got Kwity Paye going to the Raiders. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to the Dolphins. Rashad Bateman to the Washington Football Team. And at 20, Darasaur, the offensive lineman, to the Chicago Bears. So a few more defensive players off the board there. As we've seen in a lot of drafts, it's offense very heavy, particularly in the top 10. In fact, all of my top 10 except Caleb Farley on offense. But anything anyone wants to comment on there from 16 to 20?
Yeah, obviously, the drop on the offensive tackles is really seen. With Christian Darasaur here, I was thinking of his surname already.
Nice.
Going to the Chicago Bears. I think actually that works out really well for them. I loved Washington Football Team taking Rashad Bateman. The more I've kind of developed on him, the more I've got an affinity to the way he plays. I think it really translates to the NFL level. Amazing to see what an offense with Terry McLaurin and Rashad Bateman would look like. And yeah, Kwity Paye, probably about the second most consistently drafted player at any position, maybe 3rd after the Bengals and the Jaguars.
Yeah,
but I liked it.
Agreed. I think that the Waddle to the Giants and the Paye to the Raiders, I think you had both of those as well, Josh. And it just seems right. It just seems to fit. And yeah, you said it there. Bateman and Terry McLaurin. That's really, really looking nice on the football team offense. Anything that stood out for you in those 5, Chris, or anything you wanted to talk about?
I think Josh has said it all there. Obviously, Kwity Paye is basically the only player that the Raiders are drafting, it seems. I really like the Dolphins pick at linebacker. I think they need some more help there. And as he's already said about Bateman, really excited to partner up with Scary Terry. And then Darasaur, I think Chicago Bears definitely need some O-line help.
Yeah, I think it's a 5 picks where it's when it need meets value quite well. So Patrick Peterson just leaving the Cards, they're going to need a corner. The Raiders, I believe, had the lowest sack total in the entire league last year. Dolphins have just released Kyle Van Noy. Football team needs someone opposite Terry McLaurin, and yeah, the Bears need O-line help. So I think it works out quite well for those 5 teams and those five players for sure. Connor, happy to jump into the next five, or anything you wanted to add to that five? All good. Okay. So at 21, I've got the Colts taking Samuel Cosmi. 22, I've got the Titans taking Gregory Russo. And then immediately the pick after his Miami teammate, although they didn't actually play together because they sat out the season. Phillips going to the Jets, Elijah Vera Tucker to the Steelers, and another offensive lineman, Jenkins, to the Jags, looking to protect their new franchise QB. What's everyone's thoughts on that one, those five?
Yeah, I like it. Obviously, this is where we start to see the O-line talent really start to get picked off. I think the Jags will be absolutely gutted to have missed on Elijah Vera Tucker, who goes to the Steelers, but a great pick for them. Love to see what Chris's thoughts are. And I love the tantalizing opportunity with Jalen Phillips to the Jets. I think going to Robert Saleh on his defense, that would be amazing for him. Not a huge fan of Samuel Cosmi to the Colts, but that's because I'm not too high on Cosmi. But yeah, you're exactly right, Henry. This is where the draft comes down to need and what's available and what's left.
Yeah, I definitely agree there, Josh. The Cosmi pick did feel like a bit of a one where it feels like a Colts pick, and I think they will. They know, everyone knows now Wentz needs a very good offensive line to succeed. We've seen him with a good one, we've seen him with a poor one, we've seen him with an average one, and it's not good when it's not great. So yeah, I felt like that was a definite need there. Chris, let's come to you. Steelers pick there. I think you were hopefully pleased with this one. You wanted O-line, I believe, but what do you think?
I keep on changing my mind. The first one we have to go running back. Now, after the second one, the second time we looked at it, I went definitely O-line. Now I don't know. Yeah, it has to be one of those two positions, I think. We saw, obviously, Big Ben had a second half of the season drop off, which obviously affected the whole offense. But that kind of affected the whole running back or lack of productivity that we had. And I think if you improve the O-line, you can pick up a second round running back, like I mentioned the other day. So definitely one of these two positions. Vera Tucker, very highly rated, great film. So yeah, I would be very happy with this. Gregory Russo, another player that only the Titans seem to be drafting in the mocks I've seen. So another one there.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. It seems like a nice fit for the Titans there. I can't really find a spot for him ahead of that 22 spot. But yeah, just Jalen Phillips, as Josh mentioned, one that I'd like to just quickly touch on. So had several concussions in his college career and basically has had to miss significant time because of the concussions. And it seems like might be one serious head injury away from no longer being able to play. So it's a hugely risky pick for the Jets. It's probably only one you make in the first round when it's your second first round pick, perhaps. But I love the idea of him teaming up with Robert Saleh. I think that's really, really enticing prospect there. And as I said, we've talked about this a lot on the pod. If you've listened to our earlier episodes, when you get a young franchise QB, make sure you protect them, and that's what the Jags try and do at that pick 25 as well. If everyone's happy, I'll move on to the next five. Yeah, all good. So pick 26, I've got the Cleveland Browns taking Asante Samuel Jr. 27, the Ravens taking edge Jason Owe. The Saints pick up Trayvon Moehrig from TCU. My Packers finally get Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from Florida. The Buffalo Bills take an edge as well, Azeez Ojulari. And then I'll do the final two as well. The Chiefs take edge Joseph Asai, and the Buccaneers take linebacker Zaven Collins. Now, there has been a few free agent signings that might, players retained that might change this end of the mock a little bit, but I'm interested to see what you guys thought. Obviously, here's the best teams. They have often the fewest holes, but let's see what you think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Henry. Obviously, I think the biggest news was the Chiefs letting both their tackles go. I don't think there's any way now they can survive without taking an offensive line talent and offensive line talent. So, yeah, obviously that one massively changes things, but fortunately it's at the end of the mock, so it's not that big of a deal. I think the thing which is really apparent to me in these last 7 picks is we're now scraping the barrel, desperately trying to find an edge rusher that fits. I think the real losers are any team in this range who are taking an edge rusher because they're really rolling the dice on them, particularly the Ravens. I think particularly for them, they lose 2 players. Who knows who they sign in free agency, but they lose in Ngakwe and Judon, and then they're picking up Jason Oweh, who's a tantalizing prospect, but there's nothing proven there. I obviously like the Packers picking up Tony, and Morig to the Saints makes a lot of sense, but you're spending quite high draft capital on a safety.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on these 7 then, Chris?
To be honest, I can't see Tony falling to 29, unfortunately. I know you'd love to see it.
Just let me have it, Chris. Just let me.
I know you'd love to see it, but I personally can't. I saw a couple of drafts, a couple of mocks that the Jets might take him at 23, pair him up with potential Zach Wilson. But I've also seen talks of maybe Juju go in there in free agency, so that could affect that. So maybe there is a bit of hope, but yeah, Tony is definitely a player to watch this season. I think the Bills are in a similar position to the Steelers in terms of their needs, in terms of, I think perhaps more O-line protection for Josh Allen. I know he's got an edge there, but either O-line or running back, they've really suffered, and that really was key in their sort of Super Bowl push. I think a lot of their fans have been clamoring for a tight end from what I've seen online. But I've been quite impressed with Dawson Knox and what they've got there. So I don't think they need a tight end. So I personally, if I was in the Bills GM headquarters, I would be looking at either O-line or running back.
Yeah. Okay, great. I mentioned earlier, as you two have mentioned as well, there's been a few re-signings or non-signings that do make this last 7 particularly interesting. I think the Saints placed the franchise tag on safety Marcus Williams. Maybe makes the Morig pick less likely. But I've seen Morig in the top 20. I've seen him in the top 15 as well. Seems like a really interesting prospect. And as well, like we said, the Chiefs releasing both of their Pro Bowl tackles, including former first overall pick Eric Fisher, who was the longest tenured first pick still with his team. He'd been with the Chiefs for 8 years, so that's that streak over with. It seems very likely that the Chiefs might go that direction this time around. That's my first mock. I think it's pretty interesting. It was fun to do. It was great to get your guys' thoughts, and I would really love to know what everyone thinks about it, what their team should have done, and what did you think about the trade?
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Do remember to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter and YouTube. Let us know what you thought.